Hello, welcome back to the sewing room. I'm Lara, and today I want to talk to you about interfacing. Now, interfacing is one of those things that when I was first learning to sew, or even way back when I actually tried, I got a book from the library and I tried to learn how to sew, and I was scared off by something as simple as interfacing. I was already kind of anxious about choosing, the right fabric and the right pattern and the right size, and then that was just the final straw. So thankfully things have changed. I have become much more comfortable with interfacing over the years, and also my attitude of interfacing has changed over the years. But I wanted to talk to you today about interfacing in case you are kind of getting scared by it, or in case you've had bad experiences with it and you're like, oh no, I'm never going to get this right. So I went to my bookshelf and I pulled out a whole bunch of resources that, some are a little bit older, some are brand new. So hopefully you can get a better sense of what your options are. Let's start with, why does this matter? For that, let's turn to Edna Bishop's The Bishop Method of Clothing Construction. There were lots of editions of this, but they're great. The smart look of the garment in the beginning must continue for the life of the garment. The importance of interfacing must not be overlooked. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I feel like what she's getting at here is that you might sew something without any interfacing support and it might look good at first, but in order for your garment to age well and to look good over time, it's going to always have a better result if you have good interfacing. Okay, with that said, how do you choose the right interfacing? This is an area where modern sewing patterns really aren't going to help you, and actually even older patterns don't really help you. They kind of expect you're going to understand this. So let's go back to Bishop and see what she says as a start. As a general rule, choose an interfacing that is lighter in weight than the fabric with which it will be used. Our second expert and book today is The Dressmaker's Companion by Elizabeth Haywood. This is very recent. I think this came out in 2018, and it is a general all-around guide to, frankly, everything sewing. So if you don't learn anything else today, you should definitely learn that you want to check out this book. Be prepared to spend money on quality interfacing, the same as choosing quality fabric and thread. Don't spoil good quality fabric with cheap, unsuitable interfacing. I'm happy to introduce Adele Margolis' Fashion Sewing for Everyone. Adele points out that self fabric, if it is unfigured and not too limp, often makes a fine interfacing. It is the same weight and color and has the same degree of shrinkage. Theoretically, any fabric can be used: organdy, organza, lawn, muslin, crepe, taffeta, net, etc. Now I want to translate a little bit here. I'm pretty sure unfigured just means doesn't have a woven in pattern, like, so not like a damask. I wouldn't use that, but this is actually a really good list for sew-in interfacings. And here I am practicing what I preach. This is actually a piece of leftover cotton lawn from a dress I made earlier this year. And this is the cuff piece to the dress I'm currently making. And I'm using the lawn as my interfacing because, yeah, I already had it. And sometimes I really am actually, this is a 1960 pattern, and I really am trying to actually follow all of the directions, and that includes not using fusible interfacing. Okay, now I just used a term without explaining it first: sew-in interfacing. So generally there are two types of interfacing, and they're either going to be sew-in or fusible. And what sew-in means is it's essentially a piece of fabric that you then kind of attach to the garment as you're making it, so you're sewing it in. And so it takes a little bit more work and time to use sew-in interfacing. But fusible interfacing, usually you take a hot steam iron and you basically melt this kind of attached glue that's already on there to glue together or fuse together the interfacing to your fabric. This is a lot faster than using sew-in interfacing, and there are some other benefits as well, but for most people the big benefit of fusible versus sew-in is that it's faster to use. All right, the last book I want to introduce today is Stress-Free Sewing Solutions by Barbara Emodi. This came out in 2021, and it's a very slender book, but it's packed with really, really practical information that will make your sewing life easier top to bottom. Barbara says, accept the fact that 95% of all fusible interfacings are horrible, but that 5% are wonderful. Your job is to find the 5% and not be seduced into using anything else. I keep a stockpile of fusible knit for most things, fusible woven cotton for collars, weft insertion for tailoring. Returning to Adele, the fusibles are good for small areas. Use them to stiffen standing collars, cuffs, belts, and as reinforcement for areas to be slashed like buttonholes and bound pockets. Last question, where do you use interfacing? Quick answer is hopefully wherever the sewing pattern tells you to, although many experts, including Barbara Emodi, would say that you can't always trust the pattern to tell you everywhere that you should actually interface. So one of the things I do when I'm reviewing my pattern instructions is double check, do I want to potentially cut more interfacing or interfacing in a different way than is suggested in the pattern, just to make sure that I get the results that I want. Going back to the Bishop method, the extent of interfacings will depend upon the design of the dress, but they are usually found in necklines, collars, cuffs, yokes, midriffs, and areas for buttons and buttonholes. As always, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you can choose the interfacing for your next project with more confidence.